my god, it's full of stars.
Throwing the bone weapon. Oh, my droogies, this is going to be, the next three videos are going to blow your freaking mind because they blew mine. And what we're going to be going over is time travel and Project Rainbow and the USS Eldridge. And we're going to be looking at multiple movies. And there's the Rainbow.
Now, what kind of ice cream do you like, Doc?
Chocolate.
Chocolate it shall be. Come on, son.
So chocolate is made from beans, magic beans.
Amazing how much activity's going on today.
Yes, well, the guests and some of the staff left yesterday, but the last day's always very hectic. Everybody wants to be on their way as early as possible. By 5 o'clock tonight, you'll never know anybody was ever here.
Just like a ghost ship, huh?
Like a ghost ship.
By 5 o'clock tonight, you'll never know anybody was ever here.
Just like a ghost ship, huh?
Yes.
Just like
So
a
ghost ships. Ghost ships are going to be a category.
Two torpedoes into our side, Chief. He was coming back from the island of Tinian to Lady. Just delivered the bomb, the Hiroshima bomb.
The
100
bomb.
men went into the water. Vessel went down in 12
Robert
minutes.
Shaw.
Didn't see the first shark for about half an hour. Tiger, 13-footer. You know that when you're in the water, Chief? You tell by looking from the dorsal to the tail.
So you got a bull shark, a tiger shark, a white shark, a nurse. There's all kinds of sharks, and of course they fit in the puzzle. There's the men being rescued. Most of them got eaten.
What we didn't know was our bomb mission had been so secret. No distress signal had been sent. They didn't even list us overdue for a week. Very first light, Chief. Sharks come cruising. So we formed ourselves into tight groups. It's kind of like old squares in a battle, like you see in a calendar, like the Battle of Waterloo, and the idea was shark comes to the nearest man, that man he starts pounding and hollering and screaming. Sometimes the shark go away. Sometimes he wouldn't go away. Sometimes that shark, he looks right into you, right into your eyes. You know the thing about a shark, he's got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes.
So you got Robert Shaw, a Scotsman, and he's telling you about the Indianapolis. It's a ghost ship. How many men died on that? I don't know. He said 1,300, whatever it was. There it is at the bottom of the ocean. It's a ghost ship. Here they are, the men being eaten by the sharks. Here's the Apollo 1 ghost ship. All three die. There's another Apollo clue from Kubrick. The hand-knitted sweater. We have the Apollo 1 ghost ship. Icarus flew too high and his waxen feathers melted. There's the fallen astronaut with no arms and the playing card left on the moon. It's a Kubrick. So here's the January 27th, 1973 date. This is the date of the Apollo 1 fire. This is Lewis Carroll's birthday. So That's how we get Lewis Carrolls from this actual accident. There's the double doors. You can't open them when it's under pressure. They're redesigned after this accident, so the next capsule doesn't have this. There they are again. The locking mechanism is on the outside of the capsule. Once it's pressurized, you can't get out. And here they are, and it lists the January 27th birthday of Lewis Carroll. So we're following the White Rabbit throughout this whole puzzle. We're following the White Rabbit. So there's Gus Grissom, his January 27th, 19. There they are praying before the Apollo. There's the Apollo capsule. Afterwards, it's a ghost ship. There's Gus Grissom. Afterwards, he was turned to ash. There's Ringo, the Apollo. There's the door again. The door is redesigned after this, so they could get out under pressure. It's a double door in that capsule. Here's the flag-covered wagon. So we always have the flag. During covered wagon times, is what Jack says. There's the door. It's redesigned. It's all part of the Apollo simulation project. No one went to the moon. It was a rocket launch. So you have the asp snake and lots of snakes. We're just going to mention that one. There's the Apollo. It's a ghost ship. They're all dead. They flew too high, and the wax and feathers melted. And here are their gravestones. So we're doing a theme of ghost ships. So let's think of famous ghost ships. Obviously, the Olympic would be. It's not the Titanic never sank. The Olympic sank. So the Olympic is at the bottom of the ocean. It's a ghost ship, and we know this because the windows were different. And when we dive down to the bottom of the ocean, the windows don't match what we see. It was the Olympic. And of course, it's the White Star Line. There's a color and a star, so it's a doublet. Here we have all the Apollo mission names and the alchemy associated with all the Apollo capsules. And I've mentioned these throughout the series, but here I've listed them all. And I've put very brief details on how they connect to other threads. I didn't want to go crazy on this, so you would never, it'd be 15 pages. But so here's all the names, and you notice in here we have James Cook's ship, the Endeavour, and Robert Falcon Scott's ship, the Discovery, and of course we have 2001: A Space Odyssey, where we have the Discovery ship, and we have the America and the Challenger. So a Dodge Challenger is the same thing as a Dodge Sebring, is the same thing as a Dodge Satellite. It's the same thing as a Plymouth Roadrunner. It's the same thing as a Superbird Dodge Charger. They're all the same car at General Lee. You have Gumdrop and Spider. These are alchemical clues. Charlie Brown and Snoopy. These are the Peanuts character, and these are clues into Ronald Barron. And he was the man investigating Apollo 1. He gets run over by a train. And of course, Flying Aces, because you have the Red Baron, and of course, Snoopy was an ace. And the color, and of course, it's Charles Schultz. It's a cartoon. So each one of these names that he selects for these different craft are alchemical, and also their nicknames are alchemical as well. So we don't just use the names that they're called during the mission. We also find out what the nicknames are. And a perfect example is the Yankee Clipper and the Intrepid. So Joe DiMaggio is the Yankee Clipper. He's Mr. Coffee, and so he's a baseball player. So there's one of our first definitive baseball clues. And of course, he would be the king, and Marilyn Monroe would be his queen, and she's Queen of the Artichoke. And of course, the Intrepid is an aircraft carrier. This is a clue that'll come into the puzzle later on in this video, and it's you really need to know that, what I just showed you there. So there's the Titanic and Olympic. They were very close, very similar, but there were differences. Just like the Burns twins, they were very close, but there were differences. They're bipolar sisters. Here's the Columbia, the first U.S. ship to circumnavigate the globe. So this is what we named the Apollo 11 CSM as the Columbia and the Eagle. There they are, the Columbia and the Eagle, and the gold foiling and the Scotch tape because it's a Christmas present. It's a gag gift. There's the MP, which has been milled into the steel of the hull of the ship that's on the bottom of the ocean. So we know it's the Olympic because there's no MP in Titanic. So the ship at the bottom of the ocean is the Olympic. There's no doubt of this anymore. There's the 401 propeller. The 401 propeller was originally on the Titanic. It was changed to the Olympic because it had bent the propeller. So you would say, oh, it's got the right propeller. It's a 401 Titanic propeller. But no, you're wrong. It was changed out onto the Olympic, and there's records of this. Here we see the windows definitively proving this is the Olympic on the bottom of the ocean, and yet no one is in jail for murdering 1,500 people. Here we get into the allegory that we're talking about. This is the Liberty Bell capsule. This is the one that Gus Grissom pilots. and he almost dies. It almost sinks with him in the capsule. It sinks to the bottom of the ocean. Years later, they find it and they drag it out of the ocean. After that mission, they name his next capsule the Molly Brown, because the Molly Brown never sank. Here's the Columbia ship again, first U.S. ship to circumnavigate the globe. Here's Gus Grissom's lemon, and this connects into the apple and the orange and all the different fruits. The Discovery 1 craft, this is named after Robert Falcon Scott's ship. It's a ghost ship. And then we have the Discovery ship for Robert Falcon Scott. We have the Terra Nova ship, another ghost ship lost in the ice. We have Vivian Fuchs' Norg airship. He does his first trans-Arctic crossing in. We have the Alive crash in the mountain that Stephen King mentions in the book. It's a ghost ship. The Fram, this is the Norge in the Fram. And the Terra Nova, another ghost ship, Robert Falcon Scott. The HMS Challenger, so this is the Dodge Challenger and the Hemi and the Roadrunner. Here's the Erebus lost, another ghost ship, the Erebus lost in the ice. This is not the Titanic, these are pictures of the Olympic. This is the ship that sank. This is the Phoenix, it's a ghost ship that's on Mars. We have the Phoenix that's on the hood of the Johnny DeLorean created Firebird. Here's a Kubrick of a Firebird. So this is an alchemical clue some artist did. Terra Nova, another ghost ship that's lost in Antarctica. We have the Norge airship, Vivian Fuchs. He's the first trans-Antarctic crossing. We have the Norge chopper in They Live. In The Thing by John Carpenter. Here's the damage that was caused by the HMS Hawk that had rammed the Olympic and damaged it and bent the keel. So the boat is dialed up and sent out on a maiden voyage and deliberately sunk. And here's proof it's actually the Olympic. It's not the Titanic. The windows are wrong. The rudders were different. They were sister ships, very similar, but they did have minor differences. They could be told apart. When you look at them photographically, you can tell them apart. Here's the HMS Terror. This relates to the Red Terror VW that's sent to Antarctica, the first successful production vehicle. Here we have Gus Grissom being rescued from the Liberty Bell capsule. It almost sank. He almost died. So the Liberty Bell sinks to the bottom of the ocean. Now, after the Liberty Bell, he has the Gus Grissom Molly Brown capsule. The Molly Brown capsule does not sink. There's the Liberty Bell. It's been rescued from the bottom of the ocean. There's Gus Grissom. He escapes from the Liberty Bell, just barely, he almost died. After that, they change it to the Molly Brown capsule. So the Molly Brown capsule, here's the Molly Brown capsule. It did not sink, which makes sense. It fits the Titanic allegory we're talking about. And notice it has the dual inverted gull wing doors, which is a feature of this particular vehicle. And there's the Molly Brown capsule patches. There's the Molly Brown from James Cameron. There's the real Molly Brown. And here we have the Philadelphia Experiment by Charles Berlitz. It's a ghost ship, just like the Titanic, just like Apollo 1. Here's Joe DiMaggio, the Yankee Clipper. A Yankee Clipper is a type of ship. It's a very fast sailing ship. Here's the Yankee Clipper coin. Here's the Mount Erebus, lost in the ice, another ghost ship. Here's a Yankee Clipper ship. Here's the Yankee Clipper Apollo coin. So Colville designs coins. So coins are in our puzzle. Here's Joe DiMaggio's Queen. Here's the Yankee Clipper postage. Each one of these missions had a stamp and a coin. So he's giving you the coin and stamp clue. So here we have the Wilson Head golf club mated to a telescopic shaft is what Alan Shepard uses on the moon. And he rides in the Yankee Clipper. Here you have Mr. Fusion. So we had Mr. Coffee. Now we have Mr. Fusion, and it's made after a Krupp's coffee grinder. And we're looking for underground is our clue that we're looking for. And there's the Yankee Clipper coin again. And here's the Phoenix / Firebird Kubrick. It's a Kubrick toy. And then we have the Stanley Kubrick that he leaves on the moon with the playing card with all the dead astronauts. And Grissom, White, and Chaffee are on there. And then we have the real Pontiac Firebird, designed by Johnny DeLorean. Johnny DeLorean also makes the double gull-wing DeLorean that's used in Back to the Future. Here's John DeLorean sitting on a DeLorean. And there we have the DeLorean with white walls on it in the Old West. And there it is again. You know, it's it's a very flat car. Here's the Phoenix / Firebird flying and Smokey and the Bandit. So we're clued into this movie, and one of the big clues that we're clued into that movie is the Phoenix that's on the hood. There's John DeLorean. He designs the Firebird. There's the Firebird decal that's on the hood. Then we have the Phoenix. So we have the Phoenix lander that lands on Mars. And it's a ghost ship. There's no one, you know, it's driven from the Earth. It's out there by itself. And then we have the rainbow, the colors, the Doc Brown and the Red Room. And then we have the twin ships. They're twin sister ships. They're bipolar. One sinks, one doesn't. Now we get into the actual ship, the Eldridge. And you'll notice on the back of the ship, we see dual 20mm aircraft machine guns. Note that. Now we see a different picture of the ship, and it's a DE-173, and we notice that it's missing the machine gun nest on the back of it. The conning tower is different, and it has the wrong radar setup. This has air search radar, and the other ship that we just looked at has Huff and Duff radar, which is high frequency directional. They wanted to be able to find other ships. So one has a directional antenna on it, and one has an like an aviation radar on it. So they're different radars. Then we have the fact that the Eldridge is also a Playboy model, which is bizarre. So here we go. Here's the 173, and we see the 20mm machine gun nest on the back of it, and the Huff and Duff radar and the different conning tower. And then we're going to see the other ship in a second here. So this is the 173. The DE is dropped once it goes into service. So here we have the 173 again, and we see the 20mm machine gun in the back. All this information I'm talking about can be found on that video I just showed you right there. The Greek Playboy bunny Leon. So the Eldridge becomes the Leon, and I believe it is the correct ship because you'll notice on the back of it there is no 20mm machine gun nest. It's not there anymore. And of course the Leon ends up in the Greek Playboy magazine, which is bizarre. And here we have proof that Albert Einstein was working with the Navy in the 40s. And here we see a close-up of the dual 20mm anti-aircraft guns on the back of the 173. And then we notice the DE-173 doesn't have the aircraft guns on the back. It has a different radar on it, and it has a different conning tower. So clearly there are two different Eldridges, not one. So the Eldridge has a ghost ship. It has a ship that's named the same name. There's the Leon. That's in the Greek. It's retired now. It's been scrapped. And once again, there we see on the back of it, there's no anti-aircraft gun on the back of this ship. Here's some stuff from Young talking about UFOs. And then we have the rainbow fashions, over the rainbow and under the rainbow fashions, and Eyes Wide Shut.
Wave your hand over the top, Brian. Is there anything there? Yes? Oh.
And we have little Brian
wonderful, colorful,
with all the colors of the rainbow.
Take a bow, Brian. You did that beautifully. Very good indeed. Let's see if you have something behind your ear. Yes, you have. A little ball. Let's make it back. It's gone, Brian. Here it is. Here it is.
So this is a magic show. So if you're watching a magic show, it's a magic clue. Like I said, there's always a magic thread in every one of these.
I wonder if we can.
A magic flower. So flowers are a category I have not decoded.
We have the colors of the rainbow. There they are. You know all the colors of the rainbow.
There they are, Brian. The colors of the rainbow.
Nothing in my magic.
And the magic Lewis Carroll White Rabbit. I mean, this is a repeating theme over and over.
Beautiful white rabbit.
And we see Vivian Kubrick's son there as well.
How about the security break?
So we have the one-eyed jackrabbit.
TQ's checking into it, but I can guarantee you it's a mistake. Not even a jackrabbit could get through this perimeter.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I thought
Not even a jackrabbit.
There was a security break. At least 2 men were in the area of the experiment when it took place. I've put out a full alert.
So much for the jackrabbit theory.
We'll catch them. I can guarantee
So we're being clued into Lewis Carroll, the jackrabbit theory. So here's the Lewis Carroll White Rabbit. We're following him down the rabbit hole, and clearly the USS Eldridge would be a huge rabbit hole. So a vehicle to look out for in this movie would be the VW Rabbit. If this is what's going on, we should see that.
You're probably right. Now, ladies, where exactly are we going? Exactly.
Where the rainbow ends.
Where the rainbow
Where
ends.
the rainbow ends.
Don't you want to go where the rainbow ends?
Well, now that depends where that is.
Personal computer from Digital with two separate microprocessors. One for today's jobs, another for tomorrow. The Rainbow from Digital Equipment Corporation. Call 1-800-DIGITAL for the store nearest you.
The rainbow. So we've been clued into, in Kubrick's puzzle, the crash in Corona, the Magic 12, MJ12, Majestic 12. And by the way, Tranquility Base and Majestic, they're synonyms. So we have the Majestic 12, the 12 Greek Titans, the 12 men land on the moon, the 12 zodiac signs, the 12 Jungian archetypes, Majestic 12, Magic 12. So these are all clues to the crash in Corona, New Mexico. So this has been hammered in already. We already know this. So what if the thing that crashed in Corona, New Mexico wasn't really a spaceship, it was a time machine? So imagine, what would the U.S. government do if they got a hold of a time machine in 1947? So now we're going to ride the Sidewinder.
Looks like a couple of snakes down there in the lake bed.
So we're talking about venomous, cold-blooded crawlers. So they're driving down. The footage that you see in the background is from the Sidewinder footage from The Shining. So we're being shown this, and we're told this. Ridley Scott tells us in interviews that the footage he used for the end of the movie, and this is the end of the movie right here, was from Stanley Kubrick, and it was all the Sidewinder footage, which is going to the Sun Road. So once again, we have a connection into Saturn going to the Sun Road, and we're going down the Sidewinder, and we're in a different movie. So this would be Saw, Blade Runner, and Buzzsaw, and I Can Hack It Saw, and Elliot Seesaw, and Jigsaw Puzzle. So we're being pointed to Blade Runner. Here's the Sidewinder that we see the Jungian shadow of the Bell Jet Ranger. Here we are in the Sidewinder. We're going down the side. Well, right now we're in the middle of a lake, but this is the Sidewinder footage, and we have the Wild Goose Island, which is what we're on, a wild goose chase. It requires detective work. And we see the perfectly mirrored sky and the pyramidal mountain in the background, and the serpentine shape of the Sidewinder. And by the way, serpentine is California's state mineral, so that fits right with Hollywood. And of course, they're in the beetle, the yellow bug, the gold bug, peace on earth, purity of essence. And now we're in the Philadelphia experiment. We've skipped ahead.
And that's a mirage.
And they're looking at mirages. This is weird. This is a flat earth proof. What is a flat earth clue doing in the Philadelphia experiment? So I think the answer to that is we live under a dome. It's not a planet. So the Donner Party.
Farther west in the Sierras.
What was the Donner Party?
They were a party of settlers in covered wagon times. They got snowbound one winter in the mountains.
Snowbound.
They had to resort to cannibalism in order to stay alive.
You mean they ate each other up?
They had to, in order to survive.
So this is the allegorical story we were being pointed to. The Donner Party, spurned on by a foolish politician, they crossed the Great Salt Flash. The Great Salt Flash, just like the Millennium Falcon and the 1,000-Yard Stare. They're the Great Salt Flats. And the signs of them crossing it are still there in the salt today. You can see their tracks to this day, unlike the moon missions. So the Apollo missions were faked, and he's telling us that they were done because they had to. And there's Saturn, the ringed planet. Saturn, the god that eats all his children. He's a cannibal. He knows they're going to overthrow him, so he eats them before they have a chance. Here's Saturn and his sickle. And we have the Saturn V rocket shaped like a syringe, and then we have the capsules and the Mercury and the translunar injections. Saturn eats all his children at birth because he knows they're going to overthrow him. That's why he does it. There's the 13 Saturn V rockets. It's like a baker's dozen, a jelly donut. There's all the injection clues and everything. The Alive book. It's a story about cannibalism. So we have the Mercury capsules, the translunar injections, the moonshots. So he's masked and he's Hopkins. And then we have Saturno, eating his children. Saturn with a sickle, eating his children. The god of time.
Thank God for the
Kronos. So you have Admiral Byrd's appearance on the chronoscope, the Longines chronoscope. Well, Chronos comes from Saturn, the god of time. So he's running around in a circle on a spaceship. They're running around in a circle on a flat ground. They're prisoners exercising. This is a flat Earth painting, mirrored by Van Gogh, mirrored. And he's running in a circle in a spaceship. So the allegory here is it's all a joke. There's no space. So now we're back into Blade Runner. And we're going to get a bizarre clue. We see the mythical unicorn. So the unicorn is like one of one. No one has ever taken a picture of a unicorn. No one has ever seen a unicorn. We don't have a skeleton of a unicorn. So we see the unicorn, a mythical horse. And it runs by. And it runs left to right. Then we see a different take of the movie, and now it's running right to left, completely mirrored. So we're being pointed to the unicorn. And part of this is because we're looking for the unified field theory, but the other part of it is it's a mythical horse, and it's a category that we're going to be needing of mythical horses. So if you think of mythical horses, and it's a handmade unicorn, by the way. So there's another clue we're looking for the unicorn. And it's the Frank Lloyd Wright Ennis house, made of Mayan blocks. So mythical horses, and we're given Poseidon and his Neptune's trident. So here we are, the Philadelphia experiment, written by Charles Berlitz. All right, let's take a look. We're going to take a look at the date puzzle for a quick second here, because we have to know, how am I getting to know that the movie, The Philadelphia Experiment, is alchemical? Well, one of the first ways, the topic itself is alchemical, the time travel thing. But besides that, we look to the director, and we see Stuart Raffel. Stuart Raffel is born January 27th, 1942. January 27th is so linked into our puzzle now, it's ridiculous. So we have January 27th is Lewis Carroll's birthday. So Lewis Carroll's alchemy and all his little alchemical techniques, we've been using these all along, the mirroring and the palindromes and the doubling and the Jabberwocky. And, Wendy, anyway, I don't want to go into it. So one of the things we're doing in the Lewis Carroll books is we're going down the rabbit hole, and we're following the White Rabbit. So this goes into Danny as Doc. He's Bugs Bunny, and he lives under Bugs Bunny has a rabbit hole, and it's Lewis Carroll alchemy tools we're using. And so then we go to J.D. Salinger. Now remember, J.D. Salinger is born on New Year's, and he dies on January 27th. This is why we were given Salinger, because Salinger links us right to Lewis Carroll. Another famous alchemical author. And of course, in this movie, you have the carousel, and you have the crazy cliff, and he wants to catch everybody with his huge catcher's mitt before they go over the crazy cliff. The crazy cliff is the alchemy to the flat earth. The carousel is this is used in other movies, by the way. The carousel is the merry-go-round. So you're on the flat earth, you're spinning in a circle, and the sun and the moon go up and down, just like the horses on the carousel. This is very cleverly mirrored in the movie Logan's Run, which is another allegorical movie talking about the flat Earth and the fact we live in an enclosed system and blah blah blah. And in Logan's Run, when they get over 30 years old, they all go to carousel and they all fly in the air and get killed. And that's how that society controls the population. No one is allowed to live past 30 years old, which is very similar to the world we live in. No one really is allowed to live, older than 80 or 90, because by the time you get to 80 and 90, there's so much fluoride and heavy metals and GMO in your body that you will get some kind of disease if it's not injected into you from a vaccine. So in Logan's Run, you have a little timer on your hand. It tells you when your time's up. In the real world, you just get the vaccines and the GMO and all that stuff, and it kills you. So here we go. January 27th is the date of the Apollo 1 fire. This is the fire that kills the three men. And these three men are being used in the puzzle as well. And of course, this is the first Apollo capsule, Apollo 1. And it's the only capsule that is named a number. When you see the Apollo 1 capsule, it says Apollo 1 right on it. It doesn't have the letter 1. And it doesn't have a neat nickname. It's just Apollo 1. And remember, this is a huge clue because this entire puzzle is monolithic. And what this means is monolithic clue. It's always the first. It's the one. So who was the first man to the South Pole? Who was the first black professional football player? Who was the first black professional baseball player? Who's the first man to the North Pole? Who's the first man to do a trans-Antarctic crossing, which would be Vivian Fuchs? Who was the first man to do a trans-Arctic crossing in an airship? That would be Vivian Fuchs. So Vivian Fuchs hits two different metrics in our puzzle. He's the first man to fly over the North Pole, and the first man to fly over the South Pole, and the first man to the South Pole. So he is really in our puzzle. And one of the reasons we know he's in our puzzle is his birthday is July 16th, and July 16th is the Apollo 11 launch, and it's a page of dates. Catcher in the Rye is published this day, and blah blah blah. So we got Salinger. He's born on New Year's. He dies on Lewis Carroll's birthday, Mr. Jabberwocky. We have Captain Smith of the Titanic. So, and this is a way we're tying the Lewis Carroll alchemy directly to a famous maritime disaster. So we're being pointed to famous ships again. So the famous ships category has gotten quite large now. January 27th is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's birthday, and his first, I didn't put that on here, his first composition is Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. It's full of stars. How I Wonder What You Are. Alan Cummings, he's another hidden Scotsman. He plays the gay hotel clerk in Eyes Wide Shut, born January 27th. So if you wondered why they put Alan Cummings in that movie, it was because he's born January 27th, Lewis Carroll's birthday. And of course, we have Easy Rider. We have Bridget Fonda's birthday, and this is her first movie. So there's our clue to the. We're always being clued into this date. So Bridget, January 27th. Alan Cumming, January 27th. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, January. He's an archetype. I mean, if there's any musical archetypes in the classical musical genre, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And you have Eddie Van Halen names his young kid Wolfgang. January 27th is Captain Smith's birthday. He dies on April 15th. This is Jackie Robinson Day. So we have another. You'll notice when you do these little puzzles like this that we're tying into holidays, we're tying into archetypes' birthdays, we're tying into famous disasters, the man landed on the moon, blah, 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 blah. So this is the January. So Stuart Raffle is the man that directs the Philadelphia experiment. So his birthday is very alchemical. As far as alchemical birthdays go, January 27th is white hot. I mean, it's Lewis Carroll, and that's the language we're using. So let's go down a little farther than this and get past this part. So let's go to November. So why did I think that Charles Berlitz was in this puzzle? what gave me that inclination to even look? Well, it turns out Charles Berlitz is already one of our most famous people that's born on November 22nd. And he is the author of both the Bermuda Triangle, Seen and They Live, and the Philadelphia Experiment, which is one of the subjects we're going over today. And I think these two things are both related. So the freaky stuff we hear about going on in the Bermuda Triangle and the Philadelphia Experiment itself may very well be related. We hear about, Podesta's email talking about secret operations in the Bermuda Triangle, monitoring UFOs taking off out of the water, going into the water and out of the water. What if these UFOs aren't really flying machines, but they're time machines, and all they're doing is going, back and forth in time? So we have Charles Berlitz, November 22nd. November 22nd is one of the largest threads in Kubrick's puzzle. So you have Oswald Morris, the cinematographer for Lolita. It's his birthday. He does The Man with a Golden Gun. This is in our puzzle. He does The Man Who Would Be King as well. He's involved in that. That's in our puzzle. He does Lolita with Kubrick. That's in our puzzle. And we see the jet-powered flying Matador in The Man with the Golden Gun. And, of course, it's being flown by Christopher Lee. He's in our puzzle. He's Mr. Vampire. And we have this thread of flying cars. So you have Bird's Snow Cruiser. It was a car. It had a plane on it, so it was a flying car. So we have a flying car time machine in Back to the Future. We have a flying train time machine in Back to the Future 2. But we never have a flying boat time machine. So we have the car, we have the train, but we have no flying boat time machine. So it's so you go, well, how do you know you're looking for a boat? Well, in the JFK assassination, JFK Sr., he gets the riderless horse. RFK gets the funeral train, just like Lincoln gets the funeral train. So we're missing the boat. We don't have anyone who dies and takes the boat. We have someone who dies and takes the horse. We have someone who dies and takes the train. We have a flying time machine car. We have a flying time machine train. And so we don't have a flying time machine boat. That's the one thing we're missing. And why would we even think to look for a boat? What would motivate me to look for boats? I mean, am I pulling this out my ass? No. In Kubrick's puzzle, we're given the Discovery. This is the 2001 A Space Odyssey, the Discovery ship, the spaceship. The Discovery ship is really Robert Falcon Scott's ship. So let's break off this for a second. So we had Robert Falcon Scott, the last man to the South Pole. He dies on the return trip. The only reason we know the story is because we find his diary, which is another thread. So you had Robert Falcon Scott, and you have Randolph Scott is the star of the movie Wendy's watching called Carson City. So here's Andre de Toth, one-eyed director. He directs Carson City. Here's the poster for it. Here's another movie poster for Carson City. And now we're going to go back into The Shining.
Tell her about it. She's a confirmed ghost story and horror.
This is Jack's interview we're looking at here. So the dopey sticker disappears. We see two rainbows. We see all the bird clues, the cardinal, the crow, the owl. We see Minnie Mouse and Mickey Mouse. Or no, we just see Minnie Mouse. And we see a duck, and also we see the rubber duck in the corner in the tub. And he's talking in the mirror about Jack got the job. We see the Fruit Loops and the Captain Crunch and the Kool-Aid. And the phone rings. So anytime we hear a ring, it's a Saturn ringing. So in the background, we see the Carson City movie playing, directed by one-eyed director Andre de Toth. We see the Kubrick's director's chair in the background with his coat on it. It's a woven wicker chair. There it is right there. That's Kubrick's director's chair. So Jack got the job. This is a clue that Jack gets the job to fake the moon missions. And we get the 42 Bugs Bunny jersey. a Looney Tunes. So what does 42 have to do with any of this, aside from the 6 out of 7 missions and 42 Apollo astronauts, but also a rainbow occurs at 42 degrees. So Jackie Robinson, number 42, signed at 42, and wins Rookie of the Year at 42, and Summer of 42, and 42 bat swings, and 42 cars in the parking lot are all related. And of course, Carson City is directed by One-Eyed Jack Andre Dutoth. He has one eye. So we have a connection just by the oddity of the name. We have Robert Falcon Scott and Randolph Scott, Carson City, the movie. Now, this movie is about tunneling through a mountain from both sides. So we're tunneling through a mountain from both sides. In the book and the movie, The Philadelphia Experiment, they end up tunneling through time through a freak accident. People in 1984 are trying to tunnel through time, and people in 1943 are trying to tunnel through time at the same time. And somehow these two experiments become temporarily woven together, and the boat goes to 1984, and then it comes back to 1943. So essentially, the time machine that they used in this experiment was tunneling from both directions, the future and the past, to meet in the center. So this movie that we see playing on Wendy's TV set, Carson City, directed by One-Eyed Jack director Andre Dutoth, is about tunneling through a mountain from both directions. This had never been done at that point. So let's go back up to our ships here. So we have the Discovery ship. This is Robert Falcon Scott's ship. We have Robert Falcon Scott. We have Randolph Scott. And then, of course, we have David Randolph Scott. He's the Apollo 15 astronaut. So we have Scotts all over, and the Scott is a thread in itself. You have Miss Scott and George C. Scott and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into it. So we're being pointed to Robert Falcon Scott over and over and over through this little allegory and the name puzzles he puts in here. So let's go back to the ship. So we have the Discovery ship, Robert Falcon Scott ship. We have the Yankee Clipper. The Yankee Clipper is a very fast sailing ship. This is also the nickname for Joe DiMaggio, Mr. Coffee, Mr. Fusion. We have the Columbia ship. This is the first U.S. ship to circumnavigate the globe. We have the Columbia Apollo 11 capsule. We have the Columbia pictures, and I'm not going to go into this, but so this Columbia is being repeated. It's because it's the first U.S. ship to circumnavigate. And this Discovery is the ship of Robert Falcon Scott, the last man to the South Pole. So then we go into the Endeavour. This is James Cook's famous ship. Now, in The Shining, Philip Stone, playing Delbert Grady / Charles Grady, the two caretakers become one caretaker becomes two. It's Delbert Charles. It's two different people. And the interesting thing about Delbert and Charles are Charles does not remember killing his family. Delbert not only remembers killing his family, but he tells you he relished it. I corrected them. So there's two different caretakers. It's another Lewis Carroll. We're doubling, we're splitting, we're dividing. So we have James Cook, very famous polar explorer, and his ship is named the Endeavour. And in The Shining, Philip Stone says, "Oh, a nigga cook." So we're being given foods. This goes into a whole category. We're given foods and cooks in the puzzle. So we have the pepper and the artichoke and the bull and the chicken and the Albert broccoli. So there's all these hidden foods in your puzzle, and you're collecting these foods for the Overlook Ball. And you're also collecting whiskeys and wines, because it's going to be a party, and beers and fish and so all these different things that you would eat. They're going to be vegetables, and they're going to be animals, and they're going to be drinks, and you're going to have Coke and Pepsi and Shasta and Dr. Pepper. So all the little alchemical food and drink clues that are in this puzzle are going to be everywhere. And also, we have clues to the cooks. So you go, well, what are you talking about, Rich? Well, the cooks would be Michael Paré. Michael Paré was a chef before he became an actor. So he directly ties into the cooks and the foods and the whiskeys and the wines and the beers and the Albert Broccoli and the Marilyn Monroe, Queen of the Artichoke, and blah, 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 blah. And of course, the cook, he's one of the famous, we always have a link into these famous polar explorers, always. So Michael Paré turns out was a chef, a cook. So this is a cook, this is a clue into James Cook, polar explorer, and his ship, the Endeavour. So the Endeavour also becomes a NASA space shuttle. We have the space shuttle Endeavour. So these clues of this fakery in this puzzle haven't ended. They're still going on. So we have Robert Falcon Scott. And we have Randolph Scott, Carson City. This is the movie that's playing on her TV. It's about tunneling through a mountain from both sides at the same time. We have David Randolph Scott, Apollo 15. And these are clues into the Falcon. Feather drop. Oh. The Falcon feather drop. So this is a gravity clue. He's telling you gravity is a crock of shit. And, so they do the hammer. This is David Randolph Scott on Apollo 15 on the moon in his Falcon with his co-astronaut. And his co-astronaut is a real falconer who has his own falcon in real life. So let's go from, we have Robert Falcon Scott, the last man to the South Pole. He dies on the return trip. To Roald Amundsen, the first man to the South Pole. And Robert Falcon Scott gets beat by, the thing is, we're told he gets beat by 33 hours, So here's some of the Masonic clues that, this is all a bullshit story because it's 33 hours. And the same thing repeats with Lindbergh's flight. He I don't know, he sleeps for 33 hours. There's another 33 hidden in Lindbergh. Anyway, Roald Amundsen is the first man to the South Pole. Of course, he's a bipolar explorer. He's been to both North and South Poles. So that's pretty rare. I mean, you can find explorers, but rarely will you find an explorer that's been both to the North and South Pole. And he was the first air crossing on the North Pole and the first South Pole landing on the South Pole. So he's a double first South Polar explorer. So he's bipolar. This goes into the the Burns twins are bipolar, and Apollo and Artemis are bipolar twins, and he's born on July 16th. And I'm not going to list the July 16th date, but the July 16th date is the Apollo 11 landing date, and it's a lot of other dates. It's also the Trinity date. So we're being pointed to the bomb. We're being pointed to the atomic bomb over and over. We have I am become death. So for some reason we keep getting pointed to the atomic bomb over and over again, and we're being pointed to death and dying and tragedy and the fact that we invented this device. November 22nd is the Doctor Strangelove release date. The movie is retracted, and Dallas is replaced with Vegas. So this is the whole Dallas, Vegas, and Margaret thing. November 22nd is JFK's death date, 1963. November 22nd, 1963 is the date and year Aldous Huxley dies. So this is the Brave New World clue you've been looking for, and the Keir Dalia stars in Brave New World. Then we have November 22nd, Rodney Dangerfield's birthday. Rodney Dangerfield is a comedian. This is a whole category. It's a thread of comedians. So Rodney is a comedian. He's in the movie Kubrick's movie The Killing. He never gets credit for it. It's a joke. He doesn't get credited for his role in the movie, even though he just stands there. And he's a comedian, and he doesn't get any respect. So this is a repeating theme of Rodney didn't get any respect. It made it this became his whole show, his whole routine. It was about not getting any respect. And the Diane I meant to say Margaret Keane, not Diane Arbus. It's Margaret Keane. She has red hair, and she never got any credit for her work, and her husband took it all. And of course, this movie is done by Nicole, and it's called Fur. And of course, Diane Arbus has the famous twins, the bipolar twins pictures. So, you think that some of the clues aren't related, but this bipolar twin thing is related to this clue with Diane Arbus, and the bipolar thing is related to Raoul Damas, he's a bipolar explorer, and Robert Falcon Scott, bipolar explorer. It's woven together. So we have Billie Jean King. She is born November 22nd. She's a king, and she's a tennis ace. Plus king is 21. So it's a cards allegory clue. And she's a triplet. Billies, Jeans, and Kings are in our puzzle. All three of these. Jeans are the eugenics. Billies are the kids and the goats and the one-eyed jacks. And, November 22nd, Anthony Burgess dies. So he's the man that writes Clockwork Orange. And Clockwork Orange is essentially about MK Ultra. And there's so many little clues hidden in it. It's hard to really categorize Clockwork Orange. But one of the things about it is it has a clock in it. So if you invented a time machine, it's a type of clock. You're transporting through time. So we have a thread of clocks and watches and cuckoo clocks and grandfather clocks and you sold me a crummy watch and the gold watch and you can shove it up your ass. It's always the watch is being repeated. And once again, in Kubrick's puzzle, it's always woven together. So if we go to the thread of horses, can we connect the thread of horses to clocks? And the answer is, well, sure we can, because we have the horse named Stopwatch. So we have a horse named after a watch. So this tells you right here, these are both going to be threads. There's going to be horses thread, so this is Blackjack and Red Rum and Red Lightning and Stopwatch and Maurice Darling and all the horses that are hidden in Kubrick's puzzle. But my point here is each one of these categories, if it's a thread, it will connect into the next one. So we have a horse named Stopwatch. So very early on, this is one of the first movies Kubrick does, he's hiding the Stopwatch horse in there. So there's already clues into time in the movie The Killing, in the 1950s. We have November 1953, November 22nd, 1953, Blackjack enters service. And this Blackjack is Blackjack Bouvier. This is the name of the horse, the bride of this horse that Kennedy rides. So it's not just Blackjack, it's Blackjack Bouvier. This is Jackie Kennedy's maiden name. And of course, Jackie Kennedy is the first lady. So it's very clever how Kubrick does his little puzzle. November 22nd, 2000. No, this is wrong. 1984. But let me check this right while we're doing this, just to be sure. Why doesn't it list his death day? What the hell? Oh, here we go. 1986. So it's 1986. By the way, May 23rd is in our date puzzle. May 23rd is the day the movie The Shining is released, and it's another date puzzle. I'm not going to do it right now, but no, May 23rd is another alchemical date list. So he dies November 22nd, 1986. So let's close this. I always say 84, it's 86. November 22nd, so we have connections into the movie Time Bandits. If you have not seen this movie and you have been watching this puzzle since the beginning, go out and watch this movie, and your head's gonna explode when you see it. And I don't have a copy of this movie. I really need a copy of this movie. But so this is Terry Gilliam, another alchemical director, and the last movie Heath Ledger makes is The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, and I don't have a copy of that either. But so Terry Gilliam is in our puzzle, and we have a connection to Mae West. Mae West is seen on the Sgt. Pepper's album, along with, let's list it right here, H.G. Wells. So we have Claudia Wells in Back to the Future. She's doubled. She gets mirrored out. She's a redhead. So Mae West is on the Sgt. Pepper's album. In the movie The Philadelphia Experiment, they talk about the life preserver, and they refer to it as your Mae West. And it turns out the Mae West was the nickname for the life preservers they used. So Mae West is on the Sgt. Pepper's album. She's a redhead. She's the queen of camp, so she fits into our puzzle perfectly. And it's another clue to November 22nd. So we go into Bobby Dillon. Bobby Dillon is in the movie Billy the Kid with Chris Christopherson. And in the movie, he carries a knife, and I can't think of his name right now. Or I think he's the man with no name. He has no name, is his name. And so he weds this day. Now, we're looking at weddings because we've been clued into. We had diamond crater, ring crater, the ring gauge. We have, what was the other one? Diamond crater, ring crater. We have going to a wedding in Full Metal Jacket. So we're to look for birthdays, death days, and wedding dates. So this is his wedding date. We have November 22nd, 1998, as Kate Winslet marries redhead Titanic star. So she's in Cameron's movie. Jamie Lee Curtis, she's in her first movie is Halloween. We're always using first. So her first movie is Halloween. It's a holiday. And once again, we're using holiday. And of course, the first day at the Overlook is October 31st, which is Halloween Day. And the name of her first movie is Halloween. So this is how we weave Jamie and Lee as a thread. Curtis is a thread. I don't know if Jamie is. I'm suspecting it is, but well, yeah. What am I saying? There's Jimmys and Jamies. So yeah, she's a Jimmy. So you got Jimmy Shatner and Jimmy Stewart and Jimmy Lee Curtis. Her first movie is Halloween. It's a holiday, and it's also the first day at the Overlook. And this goes into, it's Michael Collins' birthday and Michael Collins' daughter's birthday, and I'm not going to go into that now, but their birthdays are on Halloween. So the date puzzle and the holidays are woven together. We did Rodney already, Jamie Lee. Anyway, so in Halloween, Jamie Lee Curtis plays Laurie Strode. So this is our connection into Woody Strode and the movie Toy Story. Woody and Toy Story was based on Woody Strode, and our connection into Woody Strode, the first black professional football player. So he forms our pair with Jackie Robinson. They're our long jumper and high jumper. That's our connection to Admiral Byrd, Operation Long Jump and High Jump. All right, I had to do this date puzzle in this video because it's so important to understand why Stuart Raffle, born January 27th, is such a big deal. And all right, let's continue with the video now. So here we're going to see Kubrick's time clues. So they're said 237 times. All right, now look at the magazines and books. They're all obey, consume. They're all white-covered obey, consume books, okay? So Roddy walks up to the newsstand, and this is not, I don't have a copy of this movie, so some of the scenes, you see the Bermuda Triangle book on the bottom there. It'll get cut off in a minute because I don't own this movie. I have to. And so we're being pointed to the Bermuda Triangle, Two of a Kind, which is a cards clue, and ESP. And if you look at the books right behind the vendor to his left, you'll notice you can read the covers of the books when he has the glasses on. See the books right now in the center? Now watch, they'll flip back to it. I'll cut it over in there a couple times so you can see it. So there's the books behind him. He's got the glasses on, and we can still read the real covers. So what he's telling you is some of these books are not consume, obey books. Some of these books have real information in them. And we've been shown the Bermuda Triangle, Edgar Casey, and Two of a Kind numerous times in a row. And, of course, Charles Berlitz is born on November 22nd. So he's in our date puzzle already. So we've been shown this Charles Berlitz Bermuda Triangle book, and of course Charles Berlitz writes the Bermuda Triangle, and he's involved also in the Philadelphia experiment, a ghost ship. And so this is They Live, and here we get to see the books again. When we see them the first time, they're all white covered, and they all say consume, obey, obey, consume. But then we have one shot when he's working with the guys tell him to pay for the magazine. We get to see the books, and their covers are legitimate covers. They're not white books anymore. So it's a continuity error, but it's also pointing us to the chemical books we can see, which are Edgar Casey, Two of a Kind, and the Bermuda Triangle. And so clearly Charles Berlitz is being pointed to in this particular scene, and we wonder why. Now we're in Eyes Wide Shut. And we're going to be looking with our ears, not our eyes now, for a phenomenon called quoting. So we have jazz great Dizzy Gillespie right there, by the way. And we have Nick Nightingale. So this is a reference to Admiral Forrestal's Lone Nightingale poem he writes. So the name of this song is Night Train. So there's Nick Nightingale. It's a bird. So here we are in Back to the Future, and they're playing Night Train, and we see Neptune and his trident, and of course we see George McFly. So now I'm going to begin the part of the video where the movie The Philadelphia Experiment begins, and I think this is a good point to stop this video because it's already very long, and anyone watching this that really wants to understand it, you're probably going to have to watch this thing a couple times because I've just put so much information into it, and if you don't understand the allegory and you don't understand the dates and you don't understand the information, it won't make any sense to you. But part two, I might be able to do it in two parts. I thought three in the beginning, but I'm thinking two now. Will be worth it for you because it really gets crazy when you start looking at. I think they called it the infinite improbability drive. You get to a certain point with this particular decode, the time decode, and you realize that you're being pointed to somebody has the ability to travel through that dimension, and they're not using it for good things. They're using it for all the evil you could imagine. Imagine if you had access to a time machine and what you could do and couldn't do with it. An atomic weapon is a joke when you have a time machine. So that's what we're going to be going into in this movie, and like I said, I'm going to stop it right here. And carpe diem, guys. Have a great night.